Hello everyone, my name is Ellie Sherwin, and today I am going to be analyzing Seemuller versus Fairfax County School Board. So just a brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about today through this presentation. First, I'll go through the background of the case and then dive into the specific legal issue that is in question. I'll go through the decisions of all two courts involved, the outcome of the case, and then the basis for those decisions. I will offer up a relevant case that was put through the Supreme Court, and then I will give my opinion with justification from class resources, and then also related to how it impacts my job and also your jobs as teachers and educators. So starting off, Seemuller versus Fairfax County School Board, a case that occurred in the 1980s, all resided in the physical education teacher Donald Seemuller. He wrote an op-ed piece to the town newspaper giving a more satirical response to a claim that there was sexism in the school's gym classes. And so Seemuller wrote a letter purely satirical and said that he permits his 16-year-old daughter to drive his son to and from as many activities and even allows his wife to do light yard work, enabling him to play golf. And so some people were upset with this, particularly in his profession. His administrators were very upset with his letter, even though it was written anonymously. I couldn't really figure out exactly how they figured it out. It was him or if he offered up that information to his colleagues. But he did write an op-ed anonymously. And then after that op-ed was published, Seemuller was then given a poor review by his administration. And purely regarding his professionalism. They said that he was not professional with his outreach in the community. Then he was denied a pay raise for the following subsequent years throughout this case, and then he was even put on probation. So the specific legal issue that this case involves mainly resides in the First Amendment. So the First Amendment, talking about the freedom of speech, religion, press, petition, and assembly. Obviously, this is a case about the abridging the freedom of speech. So with the First Amendment, Seemuller believed that his right to free speech was violated, while the Fairfax County School Board believed that Seemuller's letter was, quote unquote, it disrupted school operations, and then they had a right to take action. They had a right to deny him pay and a lane change, and that they had a right to put him on probation. So this case was seen by two courts. It first went to the U.S. District Court. Seemuller, after 3 years of trying to get his case heard, he was finally heard briefly in the district court. He sought, after $350,000, obviously more than the back pay that he was being denied through his pay raises. But this was dismissed by a judge right off the bat, and because the judge said that the letter did not address a public concern, therefore it was not protected by the right to free speech. After this, it was brought to the Fourth U.S. Court of Appeals, where they actually ruled in favor. It was a 3-judge court. They ruled in favor of Seemuller, and they said that the letter was protected by freedom of speech because the letter did deal with the public's concern of sexism in schools. And so because of this, Seemuller won $3,898 with interest, which was the rough estimate of his back pay. With those denied pay raises, lane change, and then he was taken off of probation. So there were a lot of relevant cases for me to choose from, but I really connected with Pickering versus Board of Education. We've talked a lot in this course about freedom of speech, but a lot of cases that we've talked about reside in the student's right to free speech. So that's why I chose Pickering versus Board of Education, because this deals with a teacher's right to free speech. And so in this case, Pickering wrote a letter to the town newspaper, very similar to the Seemuller versus Fairfax County case that I just discussed. Pickering wrote a letter to the town newspaper and criticizing the Board of Education and the superintendent for his district. It went through circuit court and it went through the Supreme Court of Illinois, and both of those first courts actually affirmed the dismissal, affirmed the school board for dismissing Pickering after writing this letter. Then it was brought to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court found that the teachers' rights were violated, and they reversed the previous decision. And it was mainly for the same ideas that were mentioned in Seemuller versus Fairfax County. And so with the picture below, you'll see our Supreme Court justices, those showing an 8-1 decision. The majority of opinion was by Thurgood Marshall. So Justice Marshall actually stated with his reasoning for this case, he said that the problem in any case is to arrive to a balance between the interests of a teacher as a citizen in commenting upon matters of public concern, and the interest of the state as an employer in promoting the efficiency of the public services it performs through its employees. So basically saying that it really comes down to trying to find a balance between the teacher's rights and the teacher's rights as a citizen, because they believe that in both of these situations, a teacher was acting as more of a citizen than a teacher role, because they were writing a letter to a town newspaper that was not affiliated, obviously, with the school, and bringing up public concerns. And so as a private citizen, doing just that. So next I'm going to talk about my opinion. So I would say that I agree with the final decision made by the Court of Appeals. After reading through, and although I may not totally agree with Seemuller going about this in this way, but just the basic decisions made by the courts, I do agree with the final decision from the Court of Appeals. Mainly because I do believe that, teachers have some protection regarding freedom of speech. We have that right as private citizens, and I don't see why there can't be a right as a teacher to express our freedom of speech as long as it is in a professional manner and as long as it's going with our school's guidelines. I also believe that Seemuller was addressing a public concern. He was addressing a letter that was written to the editor from a student's point of view about sexism in class, and he then addressed that as a private citizen through the newspaper as well. And so he was addressing a public concern that wasn't brought up first by him, but he was addressing it. I also think it's really interesting that the letter was anonymous, which brings up this additional issue of privacy that I couldn't really get to the bottom of. And so it's a very interesting idea, and I wish I knew more about what went on there. I also believe that Seemuller was not given due process because he was not given a warning for his unprofessional behavior, which means that after this letter was put in the paper, his administration basically said you were unprofessional and then denied his ability to get a lane change, pay raise, and then put on probation. I would see a lot more, I feel like there are a lot more instances of this where maybe the administration probably gives him a warning. And perhaps Seemuller engaged in something like this before where he did get a warning, but I was unable to find that information as well. So just based off of what I learned and what is available to find online regarding Seemuller, it does seem that there was a lack of due process. All right, and then finally, talking about how does this impact my job as a teacher and your job as well as an educator. I really think it's important to understand our school district's policies and thoughts on the teacher's right to free speech. Every school district is different, every school board is different, every elected official is different, and everybody has different opinions just as much as, we have different opinions. So I think, especially me being a non-tenured teacher, I think it's really important for me to understand the criteria that I'm being evaluated on. I know that with my, 3 to 4 times a year that I'm being evaluated, that final column always is in regards to professionalism. Primarily, am I keeping a professional appearance and attitude in and outside of the classroom, which I always thought was a very interesting way to put on a professional on a form about my job, that I have to be professional in my job but as well as outside of my job, and so I think it's important to understand what this means, and so talking with your admin, asking questions, knowing what they regard as professional behavior in and outside of the job is important. And so we've all heard the idea that, we are like in a fishbowl. Everybody can see us on the outside and make judgments and ideas. And so I think that's similar with teaching as well. I also think it's really important for myself, and also I would say teachers everywhere, to be involved in their union, to know who their union representatives are, and to share any concerns that come up. Our union, is a united front at the end of the day, if we want it to be, and we can make changes happen as long as we stick together, which kind of brings me to my picture on the right, saying I am using my teacher voice with that right to free speech. And that is it for today. So here's some We're Excited, here's my We're Excited page. I can't wait to see your questions, your comments, and feedback. And that's about it. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.